We're here in Austin. It's That One Podcast. Your boys C-Roc and Ken's here with Dr. Kirk Parsley. We're excited about this one. I love SEALs. I love Navy SEALs. I love hearing from them. I just respect them so much, number one. I'm thankful for them, number two. And number three, I don't know that I probably could do it, but I don't know if I want to.
Well, here's the thing. You hear Navy SEAL, you think badass, and now we're in the presence of one. So thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What could you tell us? Okay, so you were very young. Is that typical when you go and become a SEAL, or are you an entity of your own?
Yeah, it's pretty common that, like any branch of the military, a lot of people go right out of high school.
Okay.
As it gets more and more competitive, as SEALs became kind of famous, it got harder and harder to get in. So then there are people with, college degrees. Is it like gaming, anything, right?
Yeah.
Like getting more and more accomplishments to look good. So you have, guys with master's degrees and PhDs coming in as enlisted SEALs just because it was so competitive to get in. But for the most part, it's a young man's game. I mean, the type of training you go through, you have to be pretty young.
Can you divulge the training?
Oh, it's online. You can look it up, man. Like they've got there's Reddit threads where they have the entire every day of training is logged out. These guys game it now, and it's kind of its own mess. But yeah, there's no secrets. It's really just a beat down. There's nothing secret about that training. That's just a screening, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can make it, basically the idea of that is, if you can make it through this training, we're willing to train you to be a SEAL, right?
Ah, okay.
So
you're like, that's bare minimum, baby.
Right. So
okay.
You've just gotten through the door. You get through that training, and then you go to a team. You actually learn how to be a SEAL.
What is the most excruciating part of training? And do you think Mikey, our boy here, could get through it, or maybe a younger Mikey? No offense, Mikey. You're still young, but
there's no way of predicting who's going to make it through.
Is it how much is it a mental game? Would you say versus physical or equal?
It's probably 90% mental. So one of the big challenges, in fact, for SEAL training is that there's about an 85% attrition rate, depending on where you start counting. It could be as high as 90 if you're kind of going back to earlier stages of training. But what that means is when the military's spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to create SEALs, 85 cents out of every dollar is wasted because they are making it. So they have been in the game of trying to predict success in SEAL training for as long as SEAL training's been around, and they can't do it.
No.
We're getting pretty good at predicting failure. Like if the worst thing that's ever happened to you is your parents got divorced, this probably isn't the place for you.
Yeah.
Like you need to have been through some struggle. You need to be a pretty rugged, resilient person. It's much more of a game of resiliency than it is about being super athletic, super strong, super fast. It's just, can you get beat down 24 hours a day, come back tomorrow for 8 or 9 months.
What was your preparation? You said you went in at 18. So what did you go through? Take us through your younger life that prepared you.
Well, I probably the best preparation I had was growing up in rural Texas and playing Texas 5A football, which is its own kind of psychosis. It's a very, very, very intense, serious thing. The whole community's around. Everybody knows everything. But what's that? It might as well be, right? Yeah, I mean, you start playing for your school in junior high, and then if you're on the football team, like you're in some kind of athletic training the whole year that's making you better at football. I was actually a really, really poor student. Had kind of a tumultuous home life, didn't lend itself to being a good student, and I started getting D's and F's in like third grade. After 4 years of high school, I was a sophomore. None of my friends knew, and I just kind of like drifted off into the military. My boxing coach was actually the Marine recruiter from my hometown. And the movie Heartbreak Ridge had come out, and that was cool. And so everybody was thinking, oh, Kirk's obviously going to go Marine Recon. And I thought so, too. And then this documentary came out called 48 Hours. It was like 60 minutes. It's like a news documentary show. And they covered the first 48 hours of Hell Week, which is kind of what SEAL training is the most famous for, is Hell Week, where you don't sleep for a full week of training. And they covered that, and they kept saying, toughest training in the world, toughest training in the world, toughest training. And I was like, well, I want to do the toughest training in the world. So I went and joined the Navy to be a SEAL. I actually did not know what a SEAL was. I wanted to go through that training. And SEALs had no fame, no fanfare. Nobody knew what a SEAL was. Once I became a SEAL, and I would tell my friends from high school, I'm a SEAL now, they'd be like, you work at SeaWorld? Like, what does that mean? You're a
Right.
SEAL? And I'm like, I can't really tell you. I can't really explain it. I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, think of it like Green Beret, Rambo kind of stuff, that kind of stuff, right?
Wow.
But nobody knew what it was. Yeah, it was a totally different world. And now, obviously, I just went back for my 35-year class reunion, and they have a facility now that's on probably 5 or 6 acres. It looks like a college campus. Their pool is more expensive than everything we owned, right?
Right.
Like our platoon space was something like the space we're in, right? Not even this nice. It was like an aluminum Quonset hut. We were wearing Vietnam gear. Totally different world. Totally different world. Yeah.
Was there a moment in the training or even being a SEAL that you thought, I might not make it?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah. So SEAL training is very, very heavily tilted towards endurance activity. And so when I went through SEAL training, the average guy in training was probably 150 pounds.
Okay.
Because you're running 10 miles a day, you're swimming, you're doing no courses, you're doing PT. Like, you are just active. So it's really an endurance game. Being big and strong didn't help at all. And I started buds at 230 pounds and finished buds at 185 pounds.
Wow.
But when I went through SEAL training, if you failed anything, you failed the time to run by like 1 second. It was like, see ya, like, you're gone. That's it. You go pack your bags. Like, you're
So
done.
like no strikes, you was like,
and you
it's
can't,
elimination.
and it was 2 years before you could come back. You have to wait at least 2 years. So I'm like, and I could barely pass the runs at my size. Like, I'd played football. Like I said, I lifted, I boxed, I did some, we did some kind of wrestling. I did track and field, but I was like a power athlete. And so running for miles and miles and miles was not what I'm designed for.
Yeah.
And just to pass, your timed runs were long pants with boots in the sand. 7-minute mile was a cutoff. So when you're doing 4 miles, 6 miles, 8 miles, like however far you're running, you're like, and so your first time to run is only 1.5 miles, but then it goes up like every week or two. It gets longer and longer and longer. So I was pretty sure that I was going to fail the runs, right? Because I passed every run by a matter of seconds. The instructor's like 5, 4, and I'm diving across the finish line like everyone.
Wow.
So do you think the mindset that I got this, I'm built for this, and talking yourself into it's better, or being scared and having fear that you're not going to do it? What do you think works better?
I think like, obviously I've had this conversation with 1,000 of my SEAL buddies. We talk about it all the time. We're interested in what is the what's the common denominator. I really think the general consensus is, if you want it more than you want anything in the world, and you're willing to give up everything, literally to the point where you think, I might die if I do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. That happened to me several times in SEAL training.
Wow.
Several times I'm like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to die.
Does that get you excited?
But here I go.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
here we go.
I'm all in, baby.
I'm going to die
Yeah.
because I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
And if you have any other idea of like something else you could do that would be almost as cool or almost as good, all you got to do is ring that bell, and you don't have to do this anymore, man. You go over there and do something way easier, right? You make more money, like whatever, get more girls, be more famous, whatever. You can do all kinds of cool stuff, and all you got to do is ring that bell. And so I think if you have any other alternative in your mind, you're probably
No, well,
Oh, so in order, the way you quit BUDS, BUDS is Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL School. That's our basic training. The way most people who don't make it quit.
okay.
There a substantial number of people fail. Probably 25% of the people fail, but most of the people who don't make it, they quit. And the only way to quit is to say, I want to quit, and then you go up in front of the class. The instructors, there's a bell.
So there's a physical bell.
Ship's bell. You ring it 3 times. The class sings "Happy Trails" to you, and you're gone.
No
and we
shit.
never see you
So
again.
it's like uncle. Like you're you're out. Like you're gotta. But you actually ring a bell. I didn't know that you
ring a
a physical bell. That's crazy.
And it's funny when, like I said, when I just did my 35-year class reunion, and we're walking through the SEAL compound, and there's a bell hanging where people quit, and all of us are still like.
Oh, you
like,
get that
we
feeling.
Don't get too close to that. And I actually said, and Brandy was there, I actually said, hey, I'll give somebody $100 to ring this bell. Nobody would do it.
Nobody would do it.
Right?
Oh, you get that feeling still comes back.
These guys are retired. They've been out of the military. They're congressmen, whatever. They're like, I'm not ringing it. No.
How long can you hold your breath?
My best was around 4 minutes, a little over
Wow.
4 minutes. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
When they portray the SEALs movies, etc., I mean, is it pretty accurate? Would you
Depends
say?
on the movie. Like the Charlie Sheen movies, nothing.
What do you call like BS on when you see? You're like, we didn't do that. That's not real. That would never happen.
But there was a movie recently called Act of Valor, and it was actually
Okay.
made with Navy SEALs, so the actors were actual
I wanted to. I haven't seen
SEALs.
that yet, but I wanted to see that.
So there's not great acting in it, as you would
Okay.
imagine. And they kind of compress it and make it more exciting. It's
Right.
where like this one SEAL platoon is doing what probably 6 or 7 SEAL platoons did over the course of a year. These guys did in like 6 months, like one platoon, something like that. But as far as the tactics and like the training you go through and how we behave and how we interact with each other and all that, it's spot on.
Spot on.
That's a good movie.
All right. So you were in SEALs. I assume you became a SEAL the first time.
Yep.
First time, and then you go and serve the country on missions. So can you take us through like a particular mission that stands out that you're allowed to talk about or feel comfortable talking about?
Unfortunately, I'm what is known in the community as a Hollywood SEAL because I was in the SEAL teams pre 9/11, and so the only thing we had was the Gulf War, which was really nothing. So I went through SEAL training, went to a SEAL platoon. There's another 6 months of training to actually kind of learn what a SEAL does. Then there's a 6-month probationary period, and then you take your oral and written boards, and then you become a SEAL. And you're in a platoon. That platoon prepares certain things. You do, whatever you do air work, skydiving and fast roping and things like that. You do diving. You do CQC. You do land warfare. You do winter warfare, and then you forward deploy. And so. And those days, every SEAL team kind of had its own area that it deployed to. I was with Team 5, and we deployed to Southeast Asia. We deployed to the Philippines. My first deployment, Mount Pinatubo exploded, destroyed the Philippines. And my next deployment was to Guam. But what we would do is we'd go overseas and we'd train other people's militaries to do stuff similar to us, right? So our allies have SEAL teams and their own special forces and stuff, and so they call that FID now, and so that's what I did, and one of the reasons I got out after 6 years because I was doing the same trip just with different guys and just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. I was like, I did that. I'll go see if there's something else out there for me.
And what was that like? So now you're out, and then it's like, now what?
Yeah, it kind of sucks because you go from being like, an exceptionally high achieving guy in some area to being a nobody again. And I like I said, I was a terrible student. I didn't even have a high school diploma, so I had to go to junior college.
Okay.
And I'm just like some dude running around a junior college, And I thought I might want to be a physical therapist, so I started volunteering at San Diego's Sports Medicine Facility Center. You need 2,000 volunteer hours to apply for PT school. So
Okay.
that's a lot of
Wow.
hours. And so I was like, well, I'll go get volunteer hours in case I want to do that.
Did you miss it? Did you yearn for it? I mean, because it's kind of like you're cast out, and then you're like, oh, do you want to go back to your home?
Yeah, when I was that young and I was still in San Diego, a lot of my SEAL buddies were still there.
Yeah.
I still got to do, we still did cool things. Like
Okay.
we went out and we did trips. We kind of had some fun stuff. We hung out together. The older I get, the more I miss it.
Yeah.
And for sure. And when I went back to the SEAL teams as their physician, I really missed it.
What could you do that maybe just because it's been a while now that you can't do anymore, but you're like, that was hella cool that I could do that.
I like to say, there's that country music song. I'm not as good as I once was.
Sure,
But I'm as good
late and
once
great
as I
Toby
ever
Keith.
was.
Yeah, of course. Rest in peace.
I that's kind of my motto. It's like I really feel like I could do almost everything once.
Yeah, well,
right. Like one
yes.
time. Like I couldn't do SEAL training again. No way. Like I literally don't think I could make it through a day of training. That was just like way too intense. I'm way too old and fat and out of shape and like that.
No,
by SEAL standards, I'm a donut. I'll tell you for sure. So yeah, I mean and there's skill. Things like CQC, like when you see stacks of guys going through houses and clearing rooms, and this guy goes that way and all you couldn't. Like that's a very, very, very perishable skill. Like you wouldn't want me doing that.
Right.
Somebody's going to get hurt. Accuracy, shooting. Like I'm not as good at any of that stuff. But as far as just like, yeah, let's go out and do this one thing, like one 3-day op or something, I feel like I could probably get through it once.
You still got it.
I'd need a month to recover. I'd lay around my house and whine a bunch and take a bunch of Motrin and ice myself, but yeah.
And what kind of medicine did you decide to practice, and how did you come to the decision of what kind of medicine you wanted to practice and become a doctor?
Yeah, so when I got to the SEAL teams, they just got the funding to build the very first sports medicine facility the SEALs had ever had, the first rehab they'd had. People would have thought that SEALs had something like a D1 college or something. We had nothing. Like, we didn't even have gyms, right? Like, and so we built this. They put me in charge of building this great facility. It was a great fit for me. Like I said, I worked in a sports medicine center the whole time I was in college. My plan was to be an orthopedic surgeon. So it was a great fit. And I got to set all that up, and I was involved in hiring all these great people. And then I was the dumbest guy around because we hired amazing people from professional sports teams, Olympic training centers, all this. And SEALs are a lot like professional athletes in that the worst thing that you can do is put them on the bench, like taking them out of their platoon, worst fate they can imagine. So when they go see their doctor, like, I'm good, nothing, no problems, because the doctor's the guy who can disqualify you. So because I'd been a SEAL, and there were still a ton of guys there that I had trained with and deployed with, guys who respected me, I had a good enough reputation where the SEALs were coming to my office and they'd shut the door and they'd say, hey man, let me tell you what's really going on with me. And they'd proceed to tell me like my memory sucks, my motivation sucks, my concentration sucks, I feel tired all the time, I snap at my wife, snap at my kids, I'm a prick at work, I can't pay attention, I feel like I'm getting fatter, I'm getting slower, I'm getting weaker, I'm doing everything the strength and conditioning coach is telling me to do, I'm working with the nutritionist, I'm doing everything right, and I'm just decaying, right? And they'll be like, and maybe I'm just getting old, doc, right? And I'd be like, yeah, you're 32. I mean, it's all over, right? I mean,
yeah.
28-year-old, 30-year-olds coming in, and they're just broken down. And I honestly didn't have any idea how to help them because I had gone through a Western medical school, so I knew how to recognize and treat diseases. Nothing they were saying was a disease. They just weren't performing to the level that they felt like they should be able to perform to. And so my job then became, how do I enhance the performance of these guys without pretty much any kind of pharmaceutical or drug? Because when you give, if a SEAL needs a medication, he's not deployable. Because what if he gets overseas and he can't get the medication? So
that's fascinating. I didn't know
that forced me to learn a whole new area of medicine, which is becoming more popular now, and people call it various things. My wife Brandy here and I both do it, and we call it performance medicine because it's basically the same thing that people are calling longevity medicine, but I don't know how long you're going to live, so I'm not going to say it's longevity. Yeah, I don't like the biohacking term because to me that implies that you're getting a result without the work, and that's not true. Like what they're talking about, the biohacks those are mitigators for when you aren't doing everything right. You can compensate it a little bit by these little tricks. And so what I figured out, the biggest thing that was going on with them is they were all using sleep drugs every night, and they were thought to be completely benign in those days. They've since been exposed as being not good at all for sleep. But this will probably be surprising to you, but 2009, 2010 is when this was going on. Nobody in the world outside of sleep researchers knew that your hormones were balanced when you went to sleep. And they all had hormone problems. They all had these really low anabolic hormones, high catabolic hormones, high inflammation, high oxidation. Their labs looked like a 55-year-old guy who's 30 pounds overweight and out of shape, but they're ripped, in shape like SEALs. And it forced me to go, well, let's get off of Ambien and see what that does. And so, they were taking Ambien because they couldn't sleep, though.
Sure.
So I had to give them something else. So I went to like very traditional PubMed, Cochrane database kind of things. What supplements actually help with sleep and why. I had to learn what happens when you sleep because I didn't know. They didn't teach me that in medical school. I had to learn what the sleep drugs were doing, how this could be interfering. And I came up with a combination of supplements working with the SEALs. Like they helped me figure out the right dosage and the right brands. And then I was giving them a handout and they were going to buy it. And then they started taking that, getting off of Ambien and reducing their alcohol intake, and their testosterone tripled, quadrupled.
Wow.
Their growth hormone tripled, quadrupled. Their inflammation went from like really bad to unmeasurable. Everything balanced out. These guys started performing better. It wasn't 100% solution, but it was probably 80% solution for like 80% of the guys. And like my last year there, I figured out the TBI component, the traumatic brain injury, because when I went through medical training, and they might even still teach this, I don't know. You had to be physically hit in the head with something. Something had to come in contact with your head, and you had to lose consciousness before anybody would say you had a traumatic brain injury. Now we know, actually, if somebody shoots a gun in this room right now, just like a pistol in this room, all of us would get a brain injury. It would be minor, but it's an overpressurization injury, and it causes your brain to rattle, and it causes a little bit of brain damage. And so SEALs actually have like thousands and thousands and thousands of brain injuries.
I could imagine.
And your brain is what regulates your hormones, and it regulates your sleep, and it regulates your mood, and it regulates your motivation, and all that stuff. And so they have this chronic brain inflammation. And so that's why what Brandy and I do most of our, like 70% of our time, is we work with SEALs when they're getting out of the military. We spend a year helping them repair from their career, getting lifestyle medicine, performance medicine, and we use all the tricks everybody else uses, right? Hormones and peptides and hyperbarics and light beds and saunas and ice baths and psychedelics and everything that works. We use all of that stuff. But we help these guys recover from 20 years of just beating themselves down, thousands and thousands of brain injuries, and they come out, they're pretty low functioning guys. I mean, for people, you get somebody who comes from SEAL Team 6, which is like our super SEALs, right? They're like our higher echelon of SEALs. They're literally the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come out at 42 years old, and they're going to go compete with 25-year-olds in a cubicle for some job.
Right.
Pretty tall order, right? And they're doing this with brain injuries, and they've had 10 surgeries. They have all kinds of musculoskeletal problems, chronic pain. They have wives, they have kids, they have mortgages, right? So that's what we do for SEALs, and we do the same thing for private clients, like high net worth private clients, but it's like a 1 year kind of big health makeover, focusing on sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress mitigation.
We've been talking about sleep. I was just going to ask if you can briefly tell us what happens exactly when we sleep, because Mikey and I were just talking about the importance of sleep.
So the short answer is everything, right? So what happens when you sleep would be like saying what happens when you're awake.
Right.
A million
things.
Right? So, but what uniquely happens in sleep that most people don't understand, it's not just like this time when you lay down and you rest and then you wake up, right? Like that, it's nowhere near that simple. So the reason we're all going to sleep tonight is because right now we're using resources. We're depleting our resources. And if we exercise, if we take a tumble, if we something happens and we get in an accident, whatever, we're damaging ourselves as well as depleting resources. And so we're going to go to sleep tonight, and we're going to repair everything that we damaged today. And then we're going to prepare for tomorrow by restocking the shelves, right, with neurotransmitters and vitamins and nutrients and glycogen stores and all this. And so our bodies, when we wake up in the morning, are ready to handle tomorrow better than we handled today, right? If we do the same thing tomorrow and we can repair 100% and prepare for tomorrow we might be a little better. We might be a little stronger. We might be a little smarter, right? That's the idea. And if we could, and the way evolution works, and you can't get around this, and all the biohacking in the world will not solve this, it takes 8 hours to recover from being awake for 16 hours. That's the law, man. You can't get away from it.
I love this. I have been arguing this because you can slide by 5, 6 kids. Why do you have to sleep so much? And I'm like, for me, optimal is like 8 to 9, but period.
Yeah. So eight's like that average.
I love that you said that.
So the whole reason I'm going to go to sleep tonight is I'm going to repair and prepare, right? And if I could do that 100%, I would wake up exactly the same every day, and I'd never age, right? But I can't do it 100%. When you're a kid, you do, right? When you watch a 12-year-old, they go to sleep, they wake up taller, smarter, stronger, faster, right? They sleep for 12 hours, and us around 35, it starts going the other way, and we don't recover 100%. But you think about that. This is 100% of my recovery time. Like, you don't get stronger. When you go to the gym, you get weaker. When you sleep, you repair and you get stronger. When you push your endurance, you don't get more enduring. You get less enduring, right? You deplete your resources. When you sleep, your body repairs it in a way to where you can do that better tomorrow. When you learn something, it's just in your working memory. You don't have any connection to anything else until you sleep and you rehearse it and you connect it to other information. So all of the good stuff, everything you want to get better at, is actually happening while you're asleep. It's the most anabolic time of your life, meaning when you're building things, lowest stress hormones you'll have in any 24-hour period. So if it takes 8 hours to recover 100%, and once you get past 35, you can't really recover, and you really start seeing the aging coming in, and you say, you know what, I'm a go-getter. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to beat everybody else. I'm only going to sleep 6 hours. You are choosing to age 25% faster, and you're choosing to improve yourself 25% slower. That's just the way it is, and there's no getting around it. So when we're in deep sleep, our bodies, our immune system's functioning, we're repairing, we're fighting off viruses and infections, repairing tendons, ligaments, whatever. We're restocking shells. We go into REM sleep, we're rehearsing everything we've thought about, everything we've heard, everything we've seen. We're deciding, is that important or not? And if it's important, we're gonna there's this little spark of brain activity, and we're gonna put it into a long-term memory. And then we're going to go through REM again, and we're going to do it again, and go through REM again, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to start connecting it to other information. And then when I wake up in the morning, I really know it.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, you know what? That thing I learned yesterday, it's a lot like this.
Right.
You see this in language courses. You take a language course, you work all night, you can't figure out how to say something, you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, totally obvious, right? Oh, duh, it's this.
Bonjour,
right?
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
no, that's really cool.
So sleep is really the only time you're getting better at anything.
Wow.
And it's but Western society considers it this luxury and almost this form of laziness, that if you're doing that instead of going out and doing things, well, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the only reason I exercise is to get better at something, right?
Right.
Well, if I don't sleep and recover, I don't get better, I get weaker. And then I go work out again the next day when I didn't get enough sleep, and I'm going to break myself down further, and then I'm going to and then not sleep again, and all I'm doing is making myself weaker.
Right.
I'm making myself worse. Same thing with learning. It's like, I'm trying to learn new information. I'm cutting off the morning hours of sleep is where REM is the most important, and that's the cognitive things. And then another really important piece that people completely overlook. Your ability to communicate, how you communicate, how you interact with the world, how the world impresses, like how you perceive the world, that's 100% around your belief systems and your emotions. All of that emotional categorization and all of that belief structure is solidified during sleep. So if you have an argument with your spouse about something dumb like dishes in the sink, that should pretty much be over right then, right? Like, okay, like as soon as that's over,
Right.
like, whatever, dumb argument, you go on about your life. You don't sleep well that night, you don't emotionally categorize that thing, that actually might be a trigger, and then the next time that's like a really big thing, and then if you're both not sleeping well, and there's plenty of research to show you can take couples, take 2 hours of sleep away from either one of them, doesn't matter, and then have them rate their partner the next day, have them independently rate. Both of them will rate their other partners being worse. They'll say, wasn't as connected, wasn't as attentive, wasn't as loving.
Yeah.
Wasn't, like, temperament wasn't there, communication wasn't there. Like, your ability to choose the right words, to like perceive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I take 2 hours away from you, if I show you pictures of people and say, do you think this person's a nice person, an evil person? Does this person look like somebody's a threat to you? Does it look like, what do you think of this? Do you think they're attractive? Do you think
Sure.
think this car looks nice? I can do that. Take 2 hours of sleep away from you and have you do the same thing the next day. You'll rate everything more negative.
I believe
Everybody will
that.
look more threatening. Everybody
I
will look
believe
less
that.
kind.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody will be a worse communicator. Everybody will be less friendly, less warm to you because it's your perceived threat. We have this region in our brain that's wired for looking around for threats at all the time, right? The amygdala, right? These walnut-sized parts of our brain that tells us, hey, that's a threat. Pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
That could be dangerous. Pay attention to that. When we don't get enough sleep, like I said, I'm going to sleep tonight to repair and prepare. I didn't do it completely. Tomorrow comes at exactly the same time. The sun comes up at exactly the same time. No matter how much I sleep, my responsibilities are exactly the same whether I sleep or not.
Right.
So how do I compensate? I release stress hormones. What do stress hormones do? Stress hormones make me think the world's threatening.
Yes.
It makes people seem less friendly to me. It makes time seem to go faster. It means there's more pressure on me at work. I'm more likely to go into bankruptcy. This ad campaign is not going to work, right? All these negative emotions, that's fear-based, right? There's only two human emotions, right? Fear and love. Everything is one of those things. The fear component is sympathetic.
That is a gem
stress.
right there. Fear and love.
There's a stress component to all fear, and stress hormones make you more amenable to feeling fear and anxiety, and any code word you want to put in there for fear, stress, anxiety, whatever.
What about people like Donald Trump, President Donald Trump? They say he can go all day and all that, and gets 3 or 4 hours. And are there some people that are built differently? And what do you think he would be like if he did get 8 hours of sleep?
Yes. So there, I get this pushback a lot. There are, I think we're up to about seven or eight genes now that are associated with sleep. They've categorized super sleeper genes, right? So if you have these super sleeper genes, you don't suffer as bad, you don't break down as quickly, and we don't know why. Like, are you incurring less? Like, do these genes mean that you're just breaking down less, or that you're repairing faster? We don't really know. And so the argument with people, they'll say things like, "Oh, Donald Trump sleeps 4 hours and he's great. He only needs 4 hours. I only need 5 hours." It's not true. All the research has ever shown is that those people suffer less. It doesn't show that they're optimal. Everybody is optimal around 8 hours. Just they don't break down quite as quickly. So it's not as problematic for them as it is for the general population, and so they can get away with it a little bit better. But the ideal would still be right around that 8 hours.
What do you think he'd be like if you guys?
Well, it's hard to say because
Look at Mikey prodding over here.
I mean, I think the research is like completely unified. I've never seen any research to say that somebody can actually perform better with less sleep. You can oversleep. That's usually though you have some sort of metabolic disorder or maybe some kind of mood disorder or something like that. Those you can oversleep and cause some problems, but that's actually pretty rare. But all the research shows something very simple. Like, I could take anyone in this room and I could say, "Hey, I want you to come into my research lab tomorrow, and I'm going to teach you a skill, right? And I'm going to teach you how to type with your left hand. We're going to practice for an hour. And at the end of that hour, I'm going to say, I'm going to test you, and then we're going to say like how many words can you type, or however we do it. And then go on about your day, and then come back to me tonight at 7 o'clock, and we're going to retest you. So what do you think happens at 7 o'clock? You're a little worse, right?
Yeah,
like, because you practice in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's a new skill. You don't know. So you come back at 7
Tank's a
o'clock.
little less full.
You're like, okay, I may be 10% slower, where it's not. But with no additional training, if you sleep, go home and go to sleep that night, come back the next morning, you will test better that morning than you finished training the day before. Something really even more fascinating is that if I do that same setup, but I say, come in and test, or come in and train, take a nap around noon, 1 o'clock, come back at 7. You do that, you come back, you test at 7 o'clock, just like you would have tested if you went home and gone to sleep. Now you go home and you go to sleep, and you come back the next morning even better. So now you get 2 days of training just by throwing in like a 1 hour nap.
This is so fascinating. So I used to do a morning show. So I had to get up at 3 a.m., which isn't not natural, right? I had to go live at 5. And it was always the struggle. Do you nap or do you power through and go to bed early? Right. Which would you say is optimal?
You always catch up as fast as you can.
Okay, so
you are literally damaging yourself when you stay up longer.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep up. I was miserable. Right? Like my mood, everything.
So a lot of people have heard of the beta amyloid plaques. Like they're like markers for inflammation. There's protein plaques in your brain, and they're markers for inflammation and damage to your brain. They're associated with neurological decline as you get older and neurological diseases. And so the more of these you have, the more kind of brain damage you have. Well, those plaques are building up right now, right? Ever since you woke up this morning, they're starting to build up. And if you don't go to sleep tonight when you should go to sleep tonight, you're going to have more of those. So let's say you stay up for 20 hours instead of 16 hours. We have 4 extra hours of build up, and then you go to sleep right away. You can compensate a lot for that. You can repair a lot for that. You can catch up. Not 100% though.
Okay.
You've bought more of those plaques. You're going to have those plaques. You do something like shift work, where you're outside of your sync, or you do something like you were doing, like every morning I'm getting up early and I'm going outside of my circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
like people think the sunlight is adjusting my brain and that's the circadian rhythm. No, that's just adjusting my brain. Right? My circadian rhythm is built into every single cell in my body.
Interesting.
And it's about 24 hours long. I'm using the sun to make it aligned with the planet when the sun's up and down. But the circadian rhythm's there. So if I'm a shift worker or if I'm getting up at 3 a.m., like, do the same thing in the hospitals. Like, get to the hospital at 4 a.m. and all this. So if I'm doing that and I'm out of phase with every cell in my body, like my liver, my kidneys, and my lungs, and my heart, and my muscles, those cells are doing different things when I'm awake than they're doing when I'm asleep.
Sure.
But I'm awake because my brain says I got to be awake because I have things to do. Well, that malalignment causes things to not work nearly as well. And when you do shift work, the World Health Organization has classified shift work as a type 2A carcinogen, which is the same classification as cigarette smoke.
Wow.
What that means is we're really sure it causes cancer,
That's profound.
but it would be unethical for us to test it. So we're just going to say we think it's likely, right? So that's the category it falls into. If you look at a first responder, like a ER doc, a cop, paramedic, firefighters, if they work a career shift work, they die 14 years younger than the
I got out of it. I did it for 4 years, then I had a newborn. I tried to do it with a newborn, and I wasn't sleeping anyway, so I had to leave because I was physically breaking down.
Yeah.
And mentally, I was just like, this is too crazy.
Dr. Kirk, okay, so what about people that partied when they were younger and they stayed up all night and then they go to work the next day and they did that like once a week for a few years? I don't know. I'm not saying any names, but or you were in SEAL training and you went a couple weeks without sleep. Does it do permanent damage? And can you fully recover from that as you get older if you do the right protocol?
Yeah, so the way I like to explain it is just think of it like any other kind of injury, right? You've overdone it. Like, if you're not a runner and you go run 10 miles today, you're going to feel it, right? You overused a bunch of joints. There's going to be some consequences to that. Are you going to recover 100%? Probably, unless you did something damaging. It's going to take quite a while. When you're young, you can get away with a lot more just because everything repairs faster, your hormones are higher, less inflammation, your body just works better. The older you get, the higher the consequences are. But I always give this metaphor, if you broke your leg. If you break your leg and you just go, you know what, I'm a busy man, I don't have time to deal with that, I'm just going to limp it off, and like whenever it heals, it heals. What do you think what's your leg going to be like in a year? It's going to be bad, right? It's going to be crooked, you're not going to be put weight on, it's still going to hurt, there might be some swelling, but if you break your leg and you go to the hospital immediately and they set it and they put it, everything's right, and they put it in a cast and you do all the therapy right, what's your leg like in a year? You might not even remember which leg you broke. But I can do an x-ray and I can still say that was broken. See, there's a little scar here, I can tell it was broken. But for your purposes, you're like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Sleep's the same way. If you catch up on it really quickly, and then you do things to mitigate, right? Things like taking naps during the day, and even if you get enough sleep, there's performance enhancements with naps. Like I was telling you, learning.
I love that. I'm a napper, so I love. People are like, oh, I feel like a zombie. I love napping.
Yeah, there's lots of benefits to that. But if you can, the sooner you can catch up on sleep. Okay. And what I tell shift workers, and they don't want to hear this because most of the time shift workers spend the majority of the time with their families when they get home from their shift, right? And their kids are getting ready for school and. What I tell them is the very best thing that you can do is to go to sleep as soon as you can possibly go to sleep and sleep as long as you can possibly sleep.
Yes.
That's the solution.
Yes.
Right. But, there's ideal, there's reality.
Right. That's what we shoot for.
And in between, we mitigate.
Right.
With, biohacks or modalities or nutritional supplements and things like that.
Yeah. Yes, I have one question before we do that. Your beautiful girl Brandy's here. So should you or should you not, the age-old question, go to bed mad? Because you're telling me there's like a reset, so like you're having an issue, and people are like, we don't want to go to bed mad. But is that old, verbiage or what adage, I guess you would say, is that true or not, or should you reassess it in the morning?
Well, I would say the general idea would be to get past it before you go to bed. If it's not something that you're going to solve that night, well, then you're just going to have to do it, right? If this is something contentious, it's going to take you a couple of weeks to figure it out. You do your best to communicate, hey, I still love you, and we're going to get through this, and this is great.
Sure.
And I know you're upset, and I'm upset, but let's put this aside tomorrow and deal with it in the morning. But the ideal thing would be to get past it, because like I said, when you go to sleep, when you get into REM sleep that night, you're going to rehearse it. You're going to go through all those conversations, and you're going to go through. That's why you don't say things you don't mean, because it's going to be rehearsed, and you can't take it back. It's going to be stuck in there. And so you can emotionally categorize things. If you sleep well, you can get past whatever upset that is, and it's going to end up with a better long-term relationship. And let's face it, all your problems that you're dealing with that impact your relationship are nowhere near as important as your relationship. So be the best you can possibly be, showing up for that relationship, and deal with whatever problems you have.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Oh, go ahead. We were talking about magnesium
We had a conversation.
a lot.
Kins and I had a conversation about Advil PM. There's melatonin. There's Ambien. There's all these different kinds of things, which obviously I feel like I know that they're not good, but magnesium could be a good thing to replace that with. Can you kind of just speak to that as we wind down here, because we're up against the clock? But I'm interested in that.
And is melatonin? Because a lot of people give it to their kids before they go to sleep.
Right. So like I was saying, when I took the seals off of Ambien, all I gave them was nutritional supplements. I didn't want to give them any drugs. So I learned what nutritional supplements are associated with sleep: tryptophan, 5-hydroxytryptophan, vitamin D3, magnesium, melatonin. The reason for that is because melatonin is the initiation cascade, right? So when the sun goes down, the blue light goes out of the sky, our eyes register that, and we go, oh, it's time to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. We're very visual animals. We don't see well at night. Up until a couple hundred years ago, it was really dangerous to be out at night, so we would tuck away, right, and we'd get ready for bed. A couple hours later, we go to sleep, wake up around the time the sun's coming up, go out and be human again. So anytime you have a nutritional deficiency, that's going to impact some sort of biochemical reaction. There's a lot of biochemical reactions going on in your brain. So the first thing is melatonin gets secreted when the sun goes down. That does not make you go to sleep. That initiates cascades of biochemical changes in your brain that after a couple of hours make you feel sleepy. There are thousands of things changing, and they're changing all night. And it's different in deep sleep than REM sleep than stage 2 sleep. It's different to keep you asleep than to put you to sleep. It's different to keep you asleep than wake you up. And so all of this is changing. It's very dynamic through the night. So all I did with the seals is I said, well, let's put all the supplements in there that you could possibly be deficient in, and they're all water soluble, so it's a day-to-day thing, right? And so you just take this every day. You take this, and then I give you all of the ingredients you need to make melatonin, and then I give you a dusting of melatonin, because I don't want to take over your melatonin production.
Right.
If I give you more melatonin than your brain needs, your brain quits making melatonin. You down-regulate the receptors, right? Every hormone has a receptor. So I get rid of the receptors. If I take a milligram of melatonin, from the time the sun goes down until the time that the sun comes up in the morning, my brain will make about 6 micrograms of melatonin. So if I give you 1 milligram all at once, you've got like 20 times more melatonin than you need. You downregulate receptors. You might get a good initial push, but now when your brain's producing a normal amount of melatonin, that's not enough melatonin, and now you aren't going to sleep as well. Yeah. So it's a good tool if you're going to use it for something like jet lag and you're trying to push,
sure.
You're trying to pull your bedtime a little closer to you because you're in a different time zone. And then the next thing that gets secreted is a peptide called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, capital GABA, and that slows our brain down and makes us quit paying attention to our environment. So that supplement works, and that's in my supplement as well. So
where can you get GABA? I feel like I need that in my life.
You can buy that
anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, you can buy it anywhere. And you need vitamin D3 and magnesium for 5-hydroxytryptophan to become serotonin, and then serotonin becomes melatonin. So all of those ingredients help you sleep, lower your body temperature, decrease the light in your eyes, and decrease the activity of your brain, right? You can overcome your brain's desire to be asleep by simply paying attention, right? You focus your attention on your phone, on your social media, you focus your attention on meeting girls at a bar, you focus your attention on anything other than like getting ready to go to sleep, you can override it, right? You can override the power of that GABA. And so the way to get to sleep, obviously control your stress hormones. The number one reason people don't sleep well is because their stress hormones are too high. Like I said, deep sleep is the lowest stress hormones you'll have in any 24-hour period. 24-hour stress hormones are the opposite of anabolic hormones. Anabolic hormones are building you up, making you better. Catabolic hormones are breaking you down. Stress hormones are catabolic. So you want the least amount of that as possible when you go to bed. So that's controlling your stress through the day, meditation, yoga, tai chi, blah, 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 breath work, all that type of stuff. Decrease the blue light in your eyes. And then the other thing that triggered, because we didn't have heaters and air conditioners, evolutionarily, when the sun went down, we got colder. And so one of the cues for going to sleep is getting colder. And then you just make sure, it's really hard to say, like, I'm eating a perfect diet and I know I don't have any nutritional deficiencies, especially like a water-soluble vitamin.
Sure.
So it's just like, take the supplements every night so that you know it's there.
Right.
And you it's like, I always give the metaphor, it's like I'm bringing lumber to the construction site.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything else.
Right.
If there's no crew there building it, it's not going to do anything.
Right.
And if you don't need the lumber, you'll pee it out in the morning. Like, big deal.
Big deal. Yeah. I can't wait to go to sleep tonight. I'm like so excited. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So, all right, so we're up against the clock, and I really appreciate you coming out here. It was kind of last minute, and I like to give people way heads up, but you're just working with us, and I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you at that one, and I'm looking forward to building with you, man. And you're my kind of guy. I align with you, and I'm championing you and everything that you're doing. So
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. He said yes to naps in at least 8 hours, baby. That's like speaking my language.
But no Advil PM.
Yeah, no
right?
Advil PM. Okay.
No Advil PM. All right, guys, this has been That One Podcast in Austin at the OWN headquarters. Make sure you go get your username on the OWN platform, OWN, period, because you want to lock it up. Kin's got hers. I got mine. We're going to get Dr. Kirk's going to get his. He's going to get locked in. And make sure you subscribe right now. Don't put any time into the equation. Go subscribe right now to That One Podcast. Support our guests and be that one.